Hi guys. Before we proceed to this video, we've got something very important to share with you. Neoliberalism, Inequality and Authoritarianism by Professor John V. Kofis is available for purchase. You can order it directly from the publisher Little French eBooks or through Amazon.
Hello everyone, welcome to a teaser session on the issue of techno-authoritarianism and the twilight of democracy. This is a very important issue because it has to do with the second Trump administration and the reality that the President of the United States in his second term has teamed up with Silicon Valley, high-tech companies, most visible of whom, of course, has been Elon Musk in his endeavors to essentially create efficiency, although the empirical evidence does not bear this out, efficiency in the federal bureaucracy system by essentially handing over the running of the federal bureaucracy to Silicon Valley, which necessarily entails dishing out hundreds of billions in federal government contracts to bring artificial intelligence as well as other high-tech machinery and create a capital intensive federal bureaucracy as opposed to what they regard as antiquated labor intensive. Now, invariably, there have been many scholarly works regarding the role of Silicon Valley in society, both in the public sector as well as in the private sector. The question, of course, is the degree to which, on the one hand, there is the claim that the role of Silicon Valley is to democratize communications, to promote democracy through social media and high-tech communication systems, when in fact the evidence so far, and increasingly so, indicates that the course of society and the state relying as heavily, especially on surveillance systems, not to mention defense and police systems, relies increasingly on Silicon Valley to govern in such a way that many characterize as authoritarian. This includes the United States. Now, there have been several schools of thought um, on the issue of how technology, the marriage of technology and the state, have impacted both the public sector and the private sector, and how the division of labor has changed as a result, and how the entire mode of production, in fact, the political economy model under neoliberalism has changed. I believe that all of this is the result not necessarily of technology at all. Technology is simply there that has been used by the neoliberal model and policies implemented on the basis of neoliberal goals to basically further the interests of big capital. Um, I'm just going to mention a few of the theories. One is techno-fascism, the marriage of Silicon Valley and the Trump administration in the second term, not in the first term, but the second term. Basically, the idea that there is both overt and covert cooperation. The goal, of course, of Silicon Valley is to secure contracts, to secure lower taxes, to secure deregulation, to secure government advocacy on a world scale for competition. So all these are goals. However, in return, they provide valuable data um, with regard to personal information, which of course takes us to legal aspects, namely on privacy issues. And that has been debated both in the House and the Senate, but it also has been debated in the European Union, and the European Union has been much more vigorous on this issue, on the violation of the rights of individuals and the harvesting of private data for profit, and the way it has been used. So those are some of the issues regarding techno-fascism. There is also the theory of techno-feudalism. This is not as popular, but nevertheless, I think it merits mentioning because it is a useful theory insofar as it points out the severe shortcomings of neoliberalism in crisis. The theory of techno-feudalism, which, like I said, in my view, has some flaws. It's essentially a mental construct, assumes that the capitalism is in fact over, and that there is a transition of companies essentially behaving like feudal lords in the era of the medieval epoch, when the feudal nobility um, operated with impunity in society in Western Christendom, and that the feudal nobility, along with rather weak monarchies, the feudal nobility was the hegemonic elite in control of every aspect of both public and private affairs, including, by the way, the church is the most important institution, given the universality of Christendom. Now, technical feudalism, of course, it does imply, and it's correct, that there are aspects of feudalism embedded in the neoliberal system now in crisis, and that there I would agree with that. There is also the other theory is the one that's called cyber populism by some, tech populism, technocratic populism, and essentially this is the marriage again of high tech, Silicon Valley in the case of the United States, with the state, the media, given the vast influence of high tech, especially social media, far more than the mass media. Although the social media, by the way, influences the mass media, as studies have clearly shown, what we have here is technocratic populism that is passed on to the viewer and the reader as democratic, as somehow this is the quintessence of an open society. Okay, in fact, what we have here are examples of promotion of populist issues, and in some respects as European Union hearings, but also even in the United States hearings. In Congress, what we have seen is some of this stuff, for example, with COVID-19, has been very dangerous, considering that people are playing expert with medical issues, and there are those who actually take it to heart, take whatever they hear to heart. And here what we have is, in techno-populism or cyber populism, is really an area where Silicon Valley really delves into social engineering, and that is a very serious problem. It sounds Orwellian. It does bring up issues of interwar totalitarian Europe and so forth. And that's something that scholars have been concerned about. And this is another issue I developed in the longer video that I invite all of you to listen to watch. Now, I do want to mention something that came up in the last couple of days. A very important investigative report by by the Tech Transparency Project company, and this, unfortunately for those involved, exposes, again, we'll see what response there is by the other side, but it exposes one of Elon Musk's companies, namely the former Twitter X, as a company that had been accepting money from users, directly or indirectly, with links to various jihadist organizations, all of them listed on the sanctions watch list of the United States government. And it is the United States, by the way, does have laws against any company doing business with those organizations. Now, here, if this turns out to be true, I don't know that this is Tech Transparency Project material. That's where the source. That's what the source is, and other news organizations have picked this up. If it turns out to be true, this is a violation of the law by a company that is headed by someone that the Trump administration had brought into the White House to essentially create efficiency in government and to watch out for exactly the sort of thing that this company was doing all along. Now, I'm not mentioning this, by the way, um, it's a serious issue, but it's hardly something that's new, considering that Facebook and Google and other companies, Silicon Valley, were involved and have been involved in promoting military systems and intelligence systems, and also involved in rather risque projects, whether in Myanmar with the Rohingyas in 2016, which the United Nations considers a genocide, and unfortunately, social media had a role in distracting in that one. And of course, more recently, from October 2023 until today, what has been happening in Gaza with regard to the Israeli war against the Palestinian people. So these are important issues. They're legal issues. Again, a lot of investigating, scholarly as well as journalistic investigating, more of it needs to be done. Declassified materials obviously would help. Freedom of Information Act materials would bring to light exactly what has been going on here. So I discuss all of these issues, as many as time permits, of course, in the longer video, and I ask you to join me in that, and to please write comments, join this channel. It's an educational channel, and I thank you very much.